At 5:12 a.m. on a Thursday, an HOA president made a $1.8 million mistake, and it started with a clipboard and a can of orange spray paint. Hiss. That's the sound of aerosol paint hitting my driveway. A bright orange X right over the manhole cover my family has owned since 1974. That paint was the sound of Diane Castellano going from HOA president to defendant in one spray. See, while I was 3 states away closing the biggest deal of my career, this woman decided my unused utility easement needed to become community parking. What she didn't know, that easement isn't mine to give away, and it isn't hers to take. It sits on top of the only fiber line feeding half the county's hospital network, and I'm the engineer who holds the right-of-way contract for it. She thought she was repainting a driveway. She actually triggered a federal infrastructure violation. What would you do if an HOA tried to seize land that wasn't even the neighborhood's to take? Drop a D-Wish and tell me where you're watching from. My name's Nathan Voss, and 4 months ago, I thought buying the old Whitfield property was the smartest move of my life. Maple Hollow Estates, manicured hedges, a fountain at the entrance that runs on a timer, and an HOA newsletter that reads like a compliance memo. Dues, $210 a month. Translation: paying someone else's ego to run your neighborhood like a probation office. I'm a civil engineer. I spent 6 years running fiber and utility contracts for a regional infrastructure consortium. Unglamorous work, but it pays, and it came with something most buyers never think to check: an easement deed. The old Whitfield land had a buried conduit line running under the side yard, installed in 1998, servicing 3 hospitals and a 911 dispatch center. My purchase included the exclusive right-of-way. It's boring paperwork. Nobody reads boring paperwork. Diane didn't either. 2 weeks into a project deployment out of state, the email lands. Violation notice. Unauthorized fencing over community-designated parking overlay. My side yard, the one sitting on top of a federal-adjacent utility easement, had been reclassified in Diane's private little rezoning fantasy as shared visitor parking. Here's what she didn't know. Digging into that yard without utility clearance isn't a fine. It's a federal excavation violation. Call before you dig laws exist for exactly this reason. The fine for hitting a fiber trunk line servicing emergency dispatch isn't $50 a day. It's criminal negligence with a price tag in the millions. My neighbor, Priya, tried to explain it to Diane in person, showed her copies of the recorded easement, offered to walk her through the plat map. Rules are rules, Diane said, looking at Priya like she'd tracked mud onto marble. If your friend can't respect community standards from 3 states away, maybe ownership here isn't right for him. Priya called me that night, voice tight. Nathan, she's talking about hiring a contractor to repaint the lot lines herself. I contacted the utility consortium's legal desk the next morning. The woman who picked up, Renata Ibarra, went quiet for a full 10 seconds after I explained the situation. Nathan, she is talking about authorizing unlicensed excavation over an active emergency services trunk line. That's not an HOA matter. That's a Dig Safe Act violation, and if she actually breaks ground, it becomes a federal case. Meanwhile, Priya found something buried in 5-year-old HOA minutes. Diane had lobbied against non-standard yard configurations, specifically after the Whitfield sale first listed, before she'd even seen the property. She wasn't confused about the easement. She wanted the land for a private drainage project behind her own house, and treating it as community parking was her workaround for eminent domain she had no authority to invoke. Then came the orange paint. 5:12 a.m., a contractor Diane paid in cash, marking excavation lines directly over the buried conduit. the exact spot flagged "Do Not Dig" on every utility map filed with the county since 1998. Priya's doorbell camera caught it all. Diane, clipboard in hand, directing the contractor toward the conduit markers like she was launching a construction project instead of triggering a federal violation. The contractor took one look at the orange utility flags already in the ground and backed his equipment off the lot. "Ma'am, those are hospital line markers. I'm not touching this without a permit." Diane's response, captured clean on audio: "I'm HOA president. I have the authority to approve this." That sentence became Exhibit A. I looped in Renata again, and this time, the consortium's compliance office moved fast. An emergency injunction filed before lunch, plus a formal report to the county's Dig Safe office. Because here's the thing nobody in Maple Hollow understood: that conduit isn't just protected by paperwork, it's monitored. A sensor break on that line pings the utilities operations center in real time. Diane's little parking project had already tripped an alert before the contractor even backed away. By that afternoon, county inspectors were on site. Diane tried the same line on them: "I have HOA authority," and got the same answer everyone eventually gets when they say that to someone who actually knows the law. An HOA board has authority over paint colors and mailbox height. It has zero authority over recorded utility easements and definitely none over federally adjacent emergency infrastructure. The neighborhood turned fast. Turns out 3 other residents had gotten quietly bullied over improvements that always seemed to benefit whatever project Diane had planned for her own backyard. Priya organized a recall petition before the county even finished its report. Diane resigned as HOA president 2 days later, right before the consortium's attorneys filed a claim for the injunction costs, inspection fees, and remediation Diane had personally authorized without consent. Total exposure: north of $1.8 million, all traceable to one spray can and one sentence. "I have the authority to approve this," Grandpa always told me. You don't go looking for a fight, but you don't back down from one that finds you. Diane thought she was dealing with some absentee homeowner she could push around from 3 states away. She was actually standing on top of a federally protected utility line, run by the one guy in the neighborhood who had the paperwork to prove it. If you've ever had an HOA try to claim something that was never theirs to take, drop a comment below and tell me your story. I read every single one.